Hello, everyone. Thank you for giving me the chance to speak today, Minister, at your forum. Very important. Like Charlie said, I'm speaking with my Churchill Fellowship hat. So last year, I received a Churchill Fellowship to investigate the consumer drivers and incentives for regenerative agriculture. So I'm going to take a little step further than what Andrew did. I'm going to talk about regenerative agriculture. And I know it is a very controversial term. But I guess I just wanted to start with a story of I caught up with a farmer 2 months ago at a pub, just me and him in the central CBD pub. So I asked him, what do you think of regen ag? What do you think? He put down his beer, he leaned into me, and he lowered his voice. He said, I think it works. So that scenario said to me what people actually thought of regen ag in the ag sector. You know, it's all talked about, you know, under the covers and everything. So anyway, let's go into why I picked regenerative agriculture. Look, I'm not into the controversial type of things. Maybe I'm a little bit, but I'm thinking about my son and his future, right? We've talked about soils being depleted, and I think about my son, his future generations. We need to actually regenerate the soils. So what's my project about? There are two main aspects to it, the consumer drivers and the incentive side of things. So today I'm just going to talk about the consumer drivers part of it. Part of that includes examining all the big food companies. So Minister mentioned a few earlier, PepsiCo, Nestle. So what is big food? These are all the brands here. So when you go to a supermarket, you see all these brands. You think you have a choice. You don't have a choice. They're owned by those big companies. So today, I'm going to be focusing on General Mills and Nestle. The Minister mentioned PepsiCo earlier. So firstly, in General Mills, what brands do they own? They're an American-based company. They own brands like Haagen-Dazs, Nature Valley, Yoplait, Betty Crocker as well. So when I first started scoping out my regen project back in 2019, General Mills was synonymous with the term regenerative agriculture. So in March 2019, they made a commitment to advance regenerative agriculture on 1 million acres of farmland by 2030. I like that little infographics there that says that's almost as big as the Grand Canyon. And I think they've linked it to it combats climate change. So just wanted to highlight a few examples of what they're actually doing since making that commitment in 2019, highlighting it from the producer end all the way to the consumer end. So they have 3 pilot trials to help convert, to help trial regenerative practices on with oat farmers, wheat farmers, and dairy farmers. So these are all suppliers of each of their brands. So we're talking about, 250, about 300, less than 300,000 hectares. So a bit of a way to 1 million, close to 1 million acres. So it's a 3-year trial. This is the second year that they're trialing it. So I'm very excited to hear about what their results are. So in terms of what they're doing with these farmers, I think, Minister, you're on the right track here. They're holding workshops, and then they're giving individual mentoring and advice to each of these farmers over the 3-year period. Then they're gathering all the information, profitability, and even things like whether it works or not. So efficacy, profitability. So looking forward to next year to the results. On the consumer end, one of their brands is Epic Provisions. I don't think we have it here in Australia. 3 of their products are branded with the Savory Institute's Land to Market Ecological Outcome Verification Seal. It's a long mouthful to say practices that improve soil health, biodiversity, and ecosystem function. That's just one company. So the second company I want to talk about is Nestle. December of last year, 2020, I was so excited when Nestle, the biggest of the big food company, released their commitment, if you like, net zero by 2050. That's followed up in February of this year by a really detailed roadmap sorry you can't see it, this is just one page of it, of a very detailed roadmap that's measurable KPIs and very time-bound KPIs even. So Nestle is the biggest of the big food company. I thought General Mills was big. I thought when they made that commitment, it was mainstreaming those practices. That General Mills is 21 on the scale. Nestle is number 1. Nestle's sales revenue last year was $76 billion. But don't forget, that's US billion. So in our billion is 76,000 million. They buy 1% of the world agricultural output, and their greenhouse gas footprint is twice the size of Switzerland's. So we're talking about a massive company here. And they've made time-bound, very transparent commitments, if you like. So they're going to source 20% of their key ingredients through regenerative agricultural methods by 2025, 50% by 2030. And they've linked the regenerative agriculture pathway to emission reductions. Minister touched on PepsiCo, 7 million acres globally, so that's 7 times what General Mills committed to. And that was just released in April 2021, so a few months ago. I think what I wanted to highlight here is they have already worked with 85,000 acres of land in the US and made that link to 38% net greenhouse gas reduction. And they plan to expand that to 500,000 acres of US farmland by the end of 2022. So I guess, so what? You asked me, they're all Americans. I totaled up the 2019 sales revenue of these 3 companies. Nestle was number 1, PepsiCo is number 2. General Mills is 21. They total more than 160,000 million, so that's converted into the Australian numbers. That's 8% of Australia's GDP, right? That's a massive footprint. So I guess what I want to highlight today is the trend. So General Mills announced it in 2019, March 2019. Nestle announced December 2020. A few months later, PepsiCo announced it. So this momentum is building. And I guess the challenge for us here today is to make sure that we're not left behind, I think. And what is interesting about these 3 companies is they talk about climate reduction, but they also talk about regenerative agriculture. They actually use the term regenerative agriculture as a pathway to achieving the emission reductions. So, yeah, I want to say thank you for the time, and hopefully it'll be a good discussion later. Look forward to that.
Thanks for the introduction, and thanks for the opportunity to speak today.